Hello, hello! Pizza Pax here, and we're back with Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, Commander Deck number 4. This one is Riders of Rohan, which is the white, red, blue deck. Now, let's get into this. We'll say I do like these new easier open boxes. I did slit the top before the video started. Because this is actually the second time I'm recording this. First time I forgot to have my mic on, so that's a thing. Let's see, inside of the box we have a themed deck box. It's very nice. Folds up. Then we have this little compartment with our deck, life counter, insert, and collector's booster sample, which we will put that away to open in a separate video. And as with the others, we have... Alright, so we have the 2 back tokens. Then on the front we have 12 counters. And then another half-size token. A 40 life roll down counter, 20 on one side, 40 on the other. And an insert specific to the deck. Let's see. The top of the front side, we have a little blurb about this deck. And then an overview of the rules for Commander. On the back side, we have a little bio on the 2 base commanders, Eowyn Shield Maiden and Aragorn, King of Gondor. So I have seen a couple of domain zoo lists in Legacy that have been using the Aragorn, so that's interesting. But let's get into this. Alright, our first face commander is Eowyn Shield Maiden. So for 2 blue, red, white, you get a 5/4 legendary human knight with first strike. Beginning of combat on your turn, if another human entered the battlefield under your control this turn, create 2 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. Then if you control 6 or more humans, draw a card. So a nice little token and draw engine. We have Aragorn, King of Gondor, 1 blue, red, white, for 4/4 legendary human noble with vigilance and lifelink. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. Monarch is extremely powerful overall. Repeatable source of card advantage. Whenever it attacks, up to 1 target creature can't block this turn. If you're the monarch, creatures can't block this turn. So, which would make sense why this is being run in Domain Zoo. Alright, then we have some cards from LTR directly. We have Lost the Legend, Erkenbrand, Lord of Westfold. And then we have our first reprint card for the set, which is Banishing Light. So for 2 and a white, you have an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent and opponent controls until Banishing Light leaves the battlefield. We have Fiend Hunter, which has the old templating, which is really nice. But for 1 white, you get a 1/3 human cleric. When it enters the battlefield, you may exile another creature. When it leaves the battlefield, return the exiled card to the battlefield under its owner's control. So, with the older templating, since it is 2 separate clauses, it's 2 separate triggered abilities. So, if you blink this or return it to your hand, bounce it or sacrifice it, the return trigger goes on the stack before the exile trigger resolves, so the thing will just be exiled forever. Ooh, Palace Jailer. This card is so good it's in Vintage Cube. But 2 white for a 2/2 human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. So even if someone else is the monarch, you take the monarchy by doing that. When it enters the battlefield, exile target creature an opponent controls until an opponent becomes the monarch. So which I believe if you get this off the field, then that no longer applies, but I don't exactly remember. We have good old Path to Exile. White instant, exile target creature, its controller searches their library for a basic land, put that card on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle. There's Sunset Revelry. This is actually in standard right now. But 1 and a white sorcery, if an opponent has more life than you, gain 4 life. If an opponent controls more creatures than you, create 2 1/1 white human creature tokens. If an opponent has more cards in hand than you, draw a card. Very powerful catch-up mechanic there. And Swords to Plowshares, quite possibly the best removal spell ever printed. But for a white, you have an instant that says exile target creature, its controller gains life equal to its power. Let's see, we have Village Bellringer. Now, this nice thing about Village Bellringer is it interacts very nicely with token production, especially if you have a way of copying it. So this with Splinter Twin or with Kiki Jiki goes infinite. So, but 2 and a white, you have a 1/4 human scout with flash. When it enters the battlefield, untap all creatures you control. We have Prince Immerhill the Fair from LTR. Humble Defector, 1 and a red for a 2/1 human rogue. Tap, draw 2 cards, target opponent gains control of Humble Defector, activate only during your turn. Theoden, King of Rohan, it's also from LTR. We have Arcane Signet. We all know what this does by now, but it is a mana rock for 2 that taps for your commander's color identity. Command Sphere, mana rock for 3 that taps for your commander's color identity, but you can also sacrifice it to draw a card. Heirloom Blade. 3 mana equipment. Equipped creature gets +3/+1. Whenever a equipped creature dies, you may reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card that shares a creature type with it. Put that card into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Equip 1. Let's see, Herald's Horn. 3 mana artifact. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creature spells you cast of the chosen type cost 1 less to cast. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, you may reveal it and put it into your hand. And good old Soul Ring. 1 mana, tap for 2. Talisman of Conviction. Now, this is a new version of this or a new printing of this talisman. 2 mana mana rock, taps for a colorless. Also can tap for a red or a white, but deals 1 damage to you. Also, this one is slightly misprint. The black layer is skewed ever so slightly up and to the left. Talisman of Progress, same thing, but for blue-white. And this one is actually centered. Thought Vessel, 2 mana mana rock that also has the bonus of you have no maximum hand size. Taps for colorless. Wayfarer's Bauble, 1 mana artifact that says 2, tap and sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffle. Basically a colorless rampant growth for 1 more. Command Tower, we all know what this does. Commander Staple, it's in every commander deck. Evolving Wild, searches for basics, puts center play tapped. Field of Ruin, it's a land taps for colorless. 2, tap and sacrifice it, destroy target non-basic land and opponent controls. Then each player searches their library for a basic land card and puts it onto the battlefield, then shuffles. If you are playing a multiplayer game, that includes people that did not have their land destroyed. Or sacrificed, for that matter. Path of Ancestry. Enters the battlefield land, enters the battlefield tap. Tap for 1 mana of any color of your commander's color identity. If it's spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. We have Rogue's Passage, taps for colorless, and then 4 and tap it. Target creature can't be blocked this turn. Secluded Courtyard. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Tap for colorless, and then tap, add 1 mana of any color, spend this mana only to cast a creature spell of the chosen type, or activate an ability of a creature creature card of the chosen type. I believe this was from Neon Dynasty, so that would be in standard, if it is. I have Terramorphic Expanse, same thing as Evolving Wilds, just with a different name. Baragond of the Guard. It's a 3 and a white for a 3/3 legendary human soldier. When it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain vigilance until end of turn. Very nice. Champions of Minas Tirith. 5 and a white for 4/6 human soldier. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of combat on each opponent's turn, if you're the monarch, that opponent may pay X, where X is the number of cards in your hand. If they don't, they can't attack you this combat. It's a nice little tax effect there. Gilrain, Duendan Protector. 2 and a white for a 2/3 legendary human noble. 2 and tap it. Exile another target creature you control. You may return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If you don't, at the beginning of the next end step, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control, with a vigilance counter and a lifelink counter on it. This is a good way to add counters to things and potentially save them from various removals or removal cards. Grey Host Reinforcements. 3 and a white for a 1/1 Spirit Soldier. Flying Ward 3. When it enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. Put a number of +1/+1 counters on Grey Host Reinforcements equal to the number of creature cards exiled this way. That's a good way. That's a good combination of potentially big creature that's difficult to deal with and graveyard removal. It's pretty nice. Lossernok, Captain. 3 and a white for a 3/1 human soldier with first strike. When it or another human enters the battlefield under your control, tap target creature and opponent controls. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. I have a feeling that the Horn of Gondor would go very well in this deck. Archivist of Gondor. 2 and a blue for a 2/3 human advisor. When your commander deals combat damage to a player, if there is no monarch, you become the monarch. At the beginning of the monarch's end step, that player draws a card. So this basically makes it so you draw an additional card as the monarch, which is pretty cool. Denethor, Stone Seer. 1 and a blue for a 1/3 legendary human noble. When it enters the battlefield, scry 2. 3 and a red, tap, sacrifice it. Target player becomes the monarch. Then Denethor deals 3 damage to any target. That's interesting. Fealty to the Realm. 4 and a blue for an enchantment aura, enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. The monarch controls enchanted creature. Enchanted creature attacks you, or attacks each combat if able, and can't attack you. There we go. So it does move around as the monarchy moves, but it can't attack you regardless. Alright, we have Call for Aid, 4 and a red, sorcery, gain control of all creatures target opponent controls until end of turn. Untap those creatures, they gain haste until end of turn. Sorry about that. Let's see, let's start over on this one. Call for Aid, 4 and a red, sorcery, gain control of all creatures target opponent controls until end of turn. Untap those creatures, they gain haste until the end of turn. You can't attack that player this turn, you can't sacrifice those creatures this turn. So, that's the thing. Bet there's some ways around that. Possibly blinking everything. Gimli of the Glittering Caves. 2 and a red for 1/1 legendary creature, Dwarf Warrior. Double strike. Whenever another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Gimli of the Glittering Caves. When Gimli deals combat damage to a player, create a treasure token. Nice. Boromir, Gondor's Hope. 2 white and a blue for a 3/4 legendary human warrior. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a human or artifact card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, good way to dig for things. Eomir, King of Rohan. 3 red and a white for 2/2 legendary human noble with double strike. It enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it for each other human you control. When it enters the battlefield, target player becomes the monarch. Eomir deals damage equal to its power to any target. Wow. That could just be a big old bolt out of nowhere. Then we have Faramir, Steward of Gondor. 1 a white and a blue for 2/2 legendary human noble. Whenever a legendary creature with mana value 4 or greater enters the battlefield under your control, you become the monarch. Beginning of your end step, if you're the monarch, create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. Wow. This deck really wants to be the monarch. Fourth, Irolingus. Pretty sure that's how you say that. Irolingus, yeah. X red and a white for a sorcery. Create X 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. Whenever 1 or more creatures you control deals combat damage to 1 or more players this turn, you become the monarch. This has actually seen some play in Legacy, and it's been pretty interesting. So, Monarch is making a comeback and interacts very well with initiative and other similar mechanics. Oath of Eorl. Or of Eorl? Yeah. 3 red and a white for a 3-chapter saga. Chapter 1 is create 2 1/1 white human soldier creature tokens. 2 is create 2 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. And 3 is put an indestructible counter on up to 1 target human, you become the monarch. So, very nice. We have Riders of Rohan. 3 a red and a white for a 4/4 human knight. When it enters the battlefield, create 2 2/2 red human knight creature tokens with trample and haste. Then it has dash for 4 a red and a white. So this can get pretty nasty pretty quick. So, puts a lot of, like, for 5 mana you're putting 8 power on the board, and for 6 mana you're doing it repeatedly. So the thing. Taunt from the Rampart. 3 red and a white. Sorcery, goad all creatures your opponents control. Until your next turn, those creatures can't block. Okay. That's, that is a thing that can happen. That can make for some very interesting game states. Crown of Gondor. 3 mana legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each creature you control. When a legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, if there's no monarch, you become the monarch. Equip 4. This ability costs 3 less to activate if you're the monarch. Very nice. Bastion Protector. 2 and a white for a 3/3 human soldier. Commander creatures you control get +2/+2 and have indestructible. I feel that that's a reprint. Dearly Departed. 4 white for a 5/5 spirit with flying. As long as it is in your graveyard, each human creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So most of the time you'll just be pitching this or looting it away to get it in your graveyard, where you pretty much want to keep it. The Frontline Medic. 2 and a white for a 3/3 human cleric. Battalion. Whenever it and at least 2 other creatures attack, creatures you control get indestructible until end of turn. Sacrifice it. Counter target spell with X in its mana cost unless its controller pays 3. So both a way of protecting your creatures and potentially stopping an opponent's big finisher. Increasing Devotion. It's a reprint from Dark Ascension, I think. 3 white sorcery. Create 5 1/1 white human creature tokens. If the spell was cast from the graveyard, create 10 of those tokens instead. And has flashback for 7 white. Marshal's Anthem. 2 white for an enchantment with multi-kicker, 1 and a white. Creatures you control get +1/+1. When Marshal's Anthem enters the battlefield, return up to X target creature cards from your graveyard to the battlefield, where X is the number of times Marshal's Anthem was kicked. So that's both a Glorious Anthem for 1 more, but also a repeatable reanimate spell. Very strong. Selfless Squire, 3 and a white for a 1/1 human soldier with flash. When it enters the battlefield, prevent all damage that would be dealt to you this turn. Whenever damage that would be dealt to you is prevented, put that many +1/+1 counters on Selfless Squire. Moment. Right. Unbreakable Formation, 2 and a white for an instant. Creatures you control gain indestructible until end of turn. Addendum. If you cast a spell during your main phase, put a +1/+1 counter on each of those creatures and they gain vigilance until end of turn. So both a great way of blowing out your opponents during combat and a good finisher all on its own. Verge Rangers, 2 and a white for a 3/3 human scout ranger. With first strike, you may look at the top card of your library at any time. As long as your opponents control more lands than you, you may play lands from the top of your library. As long as an opponent, not all of your opponents. So if one does, you can play lands from the top of your library, which is interesting in white. Visions of Glory, 4 and a white for a sorcery. Create a 1/1 white human creature token for each creature you control. And then flashback, 8 white. The spell costs X less to cast, where X is the greatest mana value of a commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. Huh. That is interesting. Weathered Wayfarer. 1 mana. 1/1 for human nomad cleric. White and tap. Search your library for a land card, reveal it, put it in your hand, then shuffle. Activate only if an opponent controls more lands than you. And one of the big reprints from this set, Combat Celebrant. 2 and a red for a 4/1 human warrior. If Combat Celebrant hasn't been exerted this turn, you may exert it as it attacks. When you do, untap all other creatures you control, and after this phase, there's an additional combat phase. An exerted creature won't untap during your next untap step. I think they may have errated this. Huh. I believe they may have errated Combat Celebrant. It used to be if you had 2 Combat Celebrants, you could have effectively unlimited combat steps. Alright, then we have Court of Ire. 3 red for an enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, you become the monarch. At the beginning of your upkeep, Court of Ire deals 2 damage to any target. If you're the monarch, it deals 7 damage instead. Wow. Forgot about that. I think this is a reprint. Good old Earthquake. X and a red sorcery deals X damage to each creature without flying and each player. So, good way to draw out a game, or to draw a game if you have enough mana. Flame Rush Rider, 4 and a red for a 3/3 human warrior. Whenever it attacks, create a token that's a copy of another target attacking creature that's tapped and attacking. Exile the token at end of combat. Dash 2 red. I wonder if this works with Combat Celebrant. Because if you attack with this and Combat Celebrant, use the ability on this. I don't know if can you exert if it's already declared tapped and attacking? I have to check that in the rules. Alright, Frontier Warmonger. 3 and a red for a 4/4 human warrior. Whenever one or more creatures attack one of your opponents or a planeswalker they control, those creatures gain menace until end of turn. Nice. Good way to give menace to your whole team. Harsh Mentor, 1 and a red for a 2/2 human cleric. Whenever an opponent activates an ability of an artifact, creature, or land on the battlefield, if it isn't a mana ability, Harsh Mentor deals 2 damage to that player. This was originally an Amonkhet. It might have been Hour of Devastation, but was a good way of shutting down a lot of abilities. Shared Animosity, 2 and a red for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. Considering that most of your creatures are going to be humans, if not all of them, that could get out of hand very quickly. Zealous Conscripts. This is yet another reason to put Kiki Jiki and/or Splinter Twin into this deck, so that's a good upgrade path for pretty low investment. But 4 and a red for a 3/3 human warrior with haste. When it enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent until end of turn. Untap that permanent, it gains haste until end of turn. Hey, there's Supreme Verdict in here. Nice. With new art. Supreme Verdict, 1 white, white, blue. Sorcery, the spell can't be countered. Destroy all creatures. Very nice. Door of Destinies. 4-mana artifact. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Whenever you cast a spell of the chosen type, put a charge counter on Door of Destinies. Creatures you control the chosen type get +1/+1 for each charge counter on Door of Destinies. Very nice. Vanquisher's Banner. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature or 5-mana artifact. As it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Creatures you control of that type get +1/+1. Whenever you cast a creature spell of the chosen type, draw a card. We have a nice Battlefield Forge. Very nice. Beautiful art on that. Clifftop Retreat. So the Pain land for red-white, the Buddy land for red-white. Exotic Orchard. That's for one of any color that your opponent's land could produce. Fury Calm Snarl, the red-white Snarl. Glacial Fortress, the white-blue Buddy land. Port Town, the white-blue Reveal land. Prairie Stream, the white-blue Tango land. Sulphur Falls, the blue-red Buddy land. Throne of the High City. Taps for a colorless, 4, tap and sacrifice it, you become the monarch. Windbrisk Heights, this is the white hideaway land. Enters battlefield tapped. Taps for a white and tap it. You may exile a card, or you may play the exiled card without paying its mana cost if you attacked with 3 or more creatures this turn. It should be pretty easy to trigger in this. Tranquil Cove, it's a tap duel that you gain a life when it comes in. Windscarred Crag, same thing, but for red-white. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 plains. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 islands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mountains. There's the etched standee for Eowyn, Shield Maiden. There's some tokens. Let's see, there's 2 human soldier tokens that are just humans on the back, with both 1/1s. We have 2 more human soldiers that are 1/1s with humans on the back. We have 3 human knights with trample and haste that are 2/2s with 1/1 humans on the back. Okay, then 3 treasure tokens. Oh my god, my phone is blowing up. With 2 1/1 humans and a monarch token on the back. Very nice. Then a ring and a turn reminder. Oh my god. Got added to a group chat and my phone is blowing up. I did not ask to be in that group chat. Alright, well, thank you very much for joining me on this adventure through Middle-earth. I know we had a lot of breaks and distractions in this video. Hopefully that wasn't too bad. But as always, don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe. It is the best way to help out the channel in a non-monetary fashion. If you'd like to also help out the channel in a monetary fashion, we do have a Patreon that is linked in our About page. It gives you access to some cool stuff like our members-only Discord. At the farther up, you get shout-outs at the end of videos, and even one-on-one coaching sessions for some of the higher levels. If that's something that interests you, check it out. I just put I just put that phone on silent. How is it still ringing? Yeah. Just something to consider, and it really helps out the channel. So, but as always, until next time, stay awesome. We'll see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.